Good morning wherever you are in the world. We are Unique Labs and this is the Fashion of Web3 podcast where we deliver insights into one of the hottest Web3 industries.
We are Taco and Pauline, the co-founders of Unique Labs. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with new episodes and the development of our fashion and lifestyle metaverse. And now, let's get into the episode.
Excited to speak with Leslie Holden this week. He's a design director and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience working for brands like Stefanel, Burberry and Liberty. He also has extensive knowledge of the international luxury market and the relationship of education to business because he is the co-founder at the Digital Fashion Group, which is a European-led collaboration between fashion academics and industry. The Digital Fashion Group equips fashion education professionals and brands with all the skills they need for tomorrow's workplace. He also sits on the advisory board of the Metaverse Fashion Council and a lot of other boards, and has been a guest speaker at many major education and creative conferences. Let's go. Maybe you want to tell us a bit about your background and what brought you to digital fashion.
Yeah, well, I'm very old, so this might take a long time. I was a fashion designer for quite a long time and worked for some luxury brands that you would know. So people like Dunhill and Zegna and Burberry. I had my own company in London and then slowly got into education and realized how much I loved education and how rewarding I felt it was. And then ended up being in education full time. My first proper job in education was as the Dean of Fashion for an American university. So like right at the top right away and based in London. Then I moved to Belgium and started working for Amsterdam Fashion Institute as a head in Amsterdam Fashion Institute and part of the board. And I was there for way too long, for 15 years, far too long. But it was a great job. The thing that was developed there was digital fashion. So I initiated a course in 2007 in 3D virtual prototyping, working with Lectra software. And then we brought in Clo when Clo was first started, I think in 2010, if I remember right. We have educated many of the names in digital fashion. From AMFI and also now in the Digital Fashion Group, like Amber from the Fabricant was our first graduate in AMFI who graduated with a 3D virtual collection. So she kind of paved the way. Then at the beginning of lockdown, I thought this is really time for me to move on from AMFI. I had this burning question, which I really wanted to dig deep into, which was about the digitalization of fashion. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do that, whether I was going to do a PhD on it, which is very difficult because there's not much academic work being done on the digitization of fashion, or was I going to start my own education. And I had a conversation with Sean, who is my co-founder, and we decided to just start researching into the whole thing together, talking to people, because in lockdown it was really easy to reach out to people. I started really using my LinkedIn that I'd never really used before, and everybody was available in lockdown. So it was a super time to start. And we thought we're just going to research, we're just going to speak to lots of people. We've got nothing else to do really. And we decided to focus mostly on the nascent technology companies, so the people who were really developing the technology for a new kind of fashion industry, rather than talking to other academics who didn't know anything about it anyway, or talking to brands who didn't know anything about it either. So we thought, let's go to the people who are actually developing the technology. We were very shocked. Very soon, we realized that actually nobody who was developing technology for fashion knew anything about the fashion industry. And that was pretty strange. How can you measure something, or how can you change something if you can't measure it? So if you don't know what it is and how big it is, and how can you actually change it? So we, from right away from the very beginning, saw ourselves in this very crucial position in a way in this new movement, this new direction, this new drive of the fashion industry, where Sean and I both have extensive experience in the fashion industry as designers on different levels, designing, creation, also management and directorial. And then in education, both of us have very similar experiences. And we both brought these skills together and thought, well, this is a very important time for us to actually helping to shape what's happening. And quite often we would meet with people and we would be the only adults in the room. I mean that in the nicest possible way. But Sean and I remember fashion from the beginning of the 80s, and we've seen how it's progressed in 40 years. And we're talking to people who are very enthusiastic, who have lots of ideas, but know nothing about the background and the context. And I really believe that the further back you can see, the further forward you can also see. I'm waffling now. I'm going on and on and on. You just press the button and I'll just talk for an hour, really.
Going back to actually institutions and about this lack of digital education in the fashion institutions, when new designers, new fashion management people are getting ready to leave their alma mater and start their career, like, are they ready to what expects them in the real world?
Good question. The short answer to that is no, not really. It's not anyone's fault, because this has happened really quite fast. Well, not the digitalization of fashion, that's been happening for quite a long time, but without really the impetus of having to do it right away. We've been focusing much more on the digitizing of fashion and not the digitalization or the transformation of fashion. Two different things, of course. And then also with very recent, with the whole explosion of NFTs and the metaverse, et cetera, and people running towards this thinking, okay, this is the new future and all that stuff. So education is a huge industry, employs thousands and thousands of people, most of whom have not been working in the industry for a long time, or maybe even at all, because they're focusing on their career in education. If you want to get up in education, if you want a better job in education, if you want to make more money in education, then you have to research. And research is primarily about reading what other people have researched. That's all fine and good, but when you come up against something which is changing and transforming so quickly as digital, then it's very difficult to know what to do and where to go with it. So there's that aspect of it. But the other aspect is that we've come through COVID, and it's been firefighting for education, and they've been desperately trying to hold things together. So they've not been able to concentrate and think about their curriculum. And suddenly then the digital thing's all happening and COVID's happening at the same time. And it takes a long time to change a curriculum in education. It can take like 3 years to change something. You have your learning outcomes set. You can't change them for 3 years. You can change some of the content in the classes, but then that also has to go through various committees. It takes a long time, and then you've got all these different levels of organization that a decision has to go through, plus you've got all the other politics and bureaucracy and man management and all that comes with being in education. In my mind, education needs to be broken up. It needs to be shifted and changed into another model that ideally people should be going for a job interview and saying, okay, I have 30 ECTs from London College of Fashion. I have 30 ECTs from Parsons. I have 30 ECTs from Sorbonne. I have 30, so altogether I have 300 and something ECTs. Therefore, I have a master's level education. It's about an ability to put together your own personal portfolio of learning, which is then about your skills. So that's, for me, what makes the idea of decentralization and DAO and all that kind of interesting, where that comes, where that could come, where education could move to with a curriculum which isn't so heavy and can be changed much quicker.
Speaking about researching, how do you actually self-educate?
I think at the moment there's so little official documentation written about what's happening because it's happening so quickly. I would read what I can from that point of view. But also, it's super important to kind of keep on top of things like, what people are posting in LinkedIn or what the Interline's doing. The Interline, has really up-to-date knowledge on a good level about what's happening in fashion technology. Vogue Business as well, to an extent too. And of course, that's not a kind of depth of research that is really needed to be rigorous and to really interrogate what's happening. But it's difficult to do that just now until we actually have more things happening. It's very difficult to research them. So I think from our point of view, our research is really practice-based. It's about interviewing people. It's about interviewing about what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. Really keeping on top of what the key players are doing in the industry. And I spend most of my time just talking to people, which is really nice. I really like that. But, about building your network and really using your network and keeping your community going. So again, I think that's an important part of community building. And I'm sorry, I'm in the country and there's a tractor coming past. Oh, it's a quiet tractor, that's good. Primarily for us, it's about having an ongoing conversation with our industry contacts and really understanding what's happening at the coalface in a way.
When it comes to nowadays, like using LinkedIn and using it to communicate with people, there's also loads of news being shared on LinkedIn. And I feel like before I actually go and read it on the Business of Fashion website, I will see it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really an up-to-date moment happening, opinions, everything. Yeah, I think it's been very, very essential in the development of what's happening in digital fashion to be using LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I see, for example, new fashion designers coming into the space, and we had a few interesting conversations, they ask me, where should I go? And I say, definitely Twitter and LinkedIn. And then they look at me like, LinkedIn? Like, LinkedIn is so businessy. It doesn't have anything to do with designs. I cannot share my designs. And actually you can, but also you go there to build relationships, which is just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. It is about community building and Instagram as well. But it's all for different markets. And for LinkedIn is really good for our industry community. And Twitter is very good for journalists, and Instagram is very good for our target market. Well, one of our target markets in a way, which is the millennials or the Generation Z or whatever. That's a good place.
I was also wanted to ask you about as we were talking about education. We talk more now about the institutions and the students, but what about the brands? What about these gaps that they have in the knowledge, in which side maybe you can see there is a gap of understanding, whether it's about digitalization or whether it's about understanding web3 space. And maybe we can start talking about your course, like how you fill these gaps.
I think brands have a similar kind of issue to education in a way. I think key in all of this is the team that you employ. And that was one of the reasons that our current series of webinars, this series we're doing now, is about the new team. What is that? What kind of skills do you need? What should it look like? And we're doing that in collaboration with Manchester Fashion Institute, who we've done other work with as well. And we've done a Train the Trainer course with them. So we've got all their fashion team together and had a conversation about how they pivot more towards digital. Doing these webinars with them is part of that package of helping them think more towards a digital outcome. I would say that a company needs to invest, a brand needs to invest in someone who knows something about it. So, I mean, there's lots of chief metaverse officers being employed now. I would say that was a very good example of someone who can really take a lead in understanding how a brand can communicate and share and be part of a community in the metaverse, whatever the metaverse is going to mean to us. So I would say that was key for brands. Also, very important for brands to understand why they're doing it, what they want to achieve out of it, what part of it is important to them, whether it's about marketing, whether it's about more selling, whether it's about building their community, whatever. So what are their objectives? And therefore, how are they going to get there? And the different objectives they have also indicate the possible pitfalls that might come from these objectives. But I think it's very important for a brand to think, okay, what part of this do we want to be? We don't need to do everything the same as everyone else. What's important for our customer base, and how are we going to do this? But essentially, they need to employ people who know something about it. So from a digital fashion group perspective, what we've been doing is working with brands to help their team understand what it is initially. So we've really made a place in the very beginning point of what is it, who's saying what, how are they doing it, what does this mean, and what does it mean for you? And our first course, Digital Fashion 101, is a fundamentals course, and we did that in collaboration with Parson. So the students at the end of it get a Parsons and Digital Fashion Group certificate. And that whole course is really about understanding what digitalization in fashion is, what it means, and what it could mean for you, and what the focus should be in many ways. That program we develop, we customize, we change in various ways for different companies depending on what they're looking at or looking for. We do training virtually. We do training one-to-one in the sense of, physically being there, or we repackage a course and give them it to help train, to help onboard people who are coming into the company who need to upskill very quickly their knowledge of what digitalization can be, because that's the big skills gap in a way. I see that for brands now, they need to really very quickly work out what their part is or what their part could be, and what their manifesto of intention is, what their mission and vision is where digitalization is concerned.
How do you actually design the courses? Do you speak with fashion designers? Do you speak with maybe new students, or do you speak with brands? Do they give you their input and then you kind of check what does everyone want to see?
The first course, Digital Fashion 101, was quite straightforward, and there were so many questions. So we thought, let's ask industry what they're doing. Let's find out who the key players are and how they're approaching it. It really was a reflection of all the research that we'd been doing over a year, really, well, maybe just slightly under a year that we spent just talking to people. And I write everything down. I'm really I scribble all the time. So, collecting all this information. Then we interview like this in a way. We do an hour's interview with someone. We ask them lots of questions about their company. That interview is then truncated down to sort of 15 minutes of the key points. And then we add lots of B-roll to that to illustrate different things in the interview. So that's Digital Fashion 101. with experts talking. It's a 6-unit course. And at the beginning of each unit, there's a little lecture to set the context by Sean and me together, doing a lecture. Each unit is a different theme, like it's about digital ethics or digital sustainability or digital transformation or whatever, digital revolution. Yeah, can't remember them all now. Been a while ago. And there's reflection points, there's quizzes, etc., etc. The next course, 3 Design, is a skills-based course. So we've employed 2 people to work with us, and they have done almost like a real-time course working through a design projects working with Clo. It's a fantastic course. It's really aimed at how creatives should learn this kind of software. And then our idea will be to develop another 2 levels of skill course. But we're also talking to different companies about working together, perhaps doing a more of a live workshop course. So then you can really be on top of the things that are happening right at the moment, like with a webinar. Because building a course takes like 6 months, and it's very expensive. We have to wait a little bit before we build our next course, and there's lots of other ways that we can actually present the curated knowledge that we're building. And we're working all the time on researching and building that knowledge. We're talking to people all the time. We're writing it up in articles. I'm doing keynotes for conferences continually, and all that kind of thing. So it's an ongoing process.
Absolutely. What do you think about what's happening right now within Web3 space and digital fashion, wearables and metaverse, and all this thing together? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, does it have something to do with traditional fashion?
Where to start? It's a huge question. We're in the very, very early stages of all this. That it's good to realize all the time that we're all experimenting with an idea of what it could be, should be. There's some things happening which I think are inevitable. Fashion and gaming coming together has to happen in the metaverse space, because it's gaming who have the technology to make this happen. And with that, you are getting the commodification of gaming from a fashion perspective. You can really clearly see a commercial aspect of that. What does that mean? What does it mean for a designer or a creative in the metaverse? What does it mean for fashion design in general when anybody can be a fashion designer in the metaverse? You don't need to have studied. I studied for 6 years to do fashion design, a bachelor's and a master's, 2 of the best art universities in the UK. People are saying, well, these days you don't need to have any knowledge of, you don't need to have studied fashion design to be a fashion designer. Because obviously it's not just about the end design. There's a whole other context that goes before it. And primarily you need to know what a garment looks like on a body. There's lots of questions that we need to really unpack about the possible direction things are going in. I think it's very questionable the direction that luxury is going in the sense of, if Meta has this opportunity for people to dress their avatars in Thom Browne, Prada and Balenciaga for $3, what does that mean for luxury? What does that mean for craft? And what does that mean for the fashion designer? So there's lots of questions kind of being thrown up here. And I think it's healthy. I think it's good. I think it's good that we question these processes. My fear is the rush towards a gold mine, the rush towards making lots of money. That shouldn't be the main focus of what we're doing. I think from a marketing potential, or a marketing perspective, it's incredible. Can be incredible. Then there's all this other thing coming in about collaboration, working in collaboration and sharing and designing together and decentralization and DAOs and all that kind of thing. In essence, it's about what the current or the future target market say they want or think they want. They want more involvement in the brand. They want to be part of the creation process. How do you embrace that into your product development? Why do brands want people outside the brand to be telling them what to do? Because it's another level of complication. So how do you bring that into your own marketing strategy without, people thinking that you're only doing it, like greenwashing in a way, you're only saying it's sustainable because sustainable is a key word at the moment, so I think it's very difficult to make any one clear definition of where we're going and what it means. There's many possibilities and there's many fabulous opportunities, but there's also many questionable developments. One of the things I would say, for me, the key question which should make people think about where we're going is, in 5 years' time, you'll be wearing smart glasses. Everyone will be wearing smart glasses. They will be ubiquitous. No one will be using your iPhone anymore or your mobile phone. You will go into a store. You'll get pop-ups coming up telling you where things are and what direction you should go in. All the prices you can only see if you've got your smart glasses on. We're friends, we're contacts, and I've programmed my glasses that all my friends can see me dressed as a dragon today. So you see me dressed as a dragon. And it's fantastic and wonderful in one way that you've got these glasses on that can do all these things for you. But I would say that's where the metaverse really begins. That's where we're living in real mixed realities. And you're actually living much more in a virtual world than you are in a real world because you're seeing it through these glasses all the time. At the moment, we're living like 50% of our time on screen, and then it'll be 90% plus. So if we're happy about moving towards that future, that inevitability, because that will have to happen to make sure that we're buying all these digital assets, you need to be living in virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. You need to be living with that all the time. I mean, already we have Alexa or Siri or whatever listening to everything we're doing. That AI is recording the data, is helping us make choices, but they're gaining so much information from us about what we could possibly be buying. So I think it's very important that we are educated to understand much more about the implications of the direction of what this could mean. Da, 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 da.
I think we could have a conversation, another 2-hour conversation only about that. What do you think, and you've partly covered this already, will make the metaverse a lasting thing?
I think it has to be integrated into well-being as well, integrated into our lives from the sense of really adding benefit rather than just entertainment or spending more money. I mean, I can see huge benefits, possibilities. For example, I went to visit my parents recently. I took my Oculus with me because I knew my father would be really interested in it. He loved it. He loved the fact that he could go and wander around different places in the world. He loved the fact that you could meditate on it. I could see the benefits for people who are not able to travel or not able to really communicate physically or whatever. I mean, the metaverse is part of, I mean, it's web3, it's part of that whole movement of another level of the internet. These things all have to develop and get better and make more sense in our lives. And so it's not just about us spending money. It's also about us learning, about us living. I mean, I see huge opportunities for the metaverse where education is concerned. But, again, we're not really there yet enough in technology to actually have that happening properly. But it can happen in a hybrid version at the moment. And I think more and more universities are looking at the possibilities of how they do that. And I think that's super good. Is that a little bit of an answer?
It's a great answer. Thanks for that. Tell us something interesting about yourself that most people don't know. Or if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, God. Yeah, I should have looked at your questions again this morning before we started. Something about me that people don't know. Yeah, I can answer both of them. I'm also an actor, so I also act in plays and have done a film and all that, that kind of thing. So that's something that people don't know and something that I keep quite quiet. And so now I'm telling the world.
Interesting. Next question is going to be, where can we find you?
Well, yes, I'm not going to tell you that, but I am performing in a play in October in Brussels. And superpower, I'd love to be able to see into the future. I'd love to be able to have an understanding of what all this means that we're doing just now, and where we're going, and to be able to come back and to be able to help move things in the right direction. That's a big superpower, isn't it? I mean, that's not like lifting up a car or something.
I think yours is much better, to be honest. I don't know where lifting a car would get me. It's in the future. I'd like that.
And our last question will be about your course, like how people can join your course, where they can find about information about it, and how they can follow you in socials.
People can go to our website, digitalfashiongroup.com, or the digitalfashiongroup.academy. The academy is our education part, and we have education and we also have consultancy. And as I said before, we have 2 courses, Digital Fashion 101, which is really good for anybody who's really doesn't understand what's happening in digitalization in fashion and wants more information or wants the foundation to then work from. And that's particularly good for people who have maybe been working in the industry, who have not really had any digital and who want to pivot towards, having more skills, or students who have graduated without any digital at all, and there's still a lot of them. And then the other course, 3 Design, which is really about learning how to use the software. But we have webinars that we do regularly, and all the past webinars are on our website. So if you go to our website and you register to be part of our community on our website, you have full access to all our webinars, and they're really rich in information. Amazing guests. These webinars are then written up, transcribed as articles for Fashion United, where we're regular guest contributors. So you can read them on Fashion United, and you can also see a shortened version of the webinar from a link there. We have an Instagram account, and we have a LinkedIn account, which we do posts, regular posts about things that are happening and what we're doing. And we're very open to speaking directly to people. So if people want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, I'm happy to talk, to meet, to have a conversation, to share information, whatever. That's all good and fine too. We also have a course that we did with Parsons in collaboration with Parsons, which is with Coursera, a course that kind of covers what digitalization is about in fashion. It's not the same as a course on the Digital Fashion Group, which is much more intense and a lot more detail. But it's great to have something in Coursera too, because that's a much lower price and it reaches a big market. Since we started the Digital Fashion Group in 2020, we have actually educated over 3,500 people towards 4,000 people. And that's through our courses from our website and from Coursera and the courses that we've done with brands and all that kind of thing. So our impact in the last year has been quite enormous.
In terms of getting in touch with you, I can confirm you are responsive. You can contact Leslie on LinkedIn and he will reply. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to talking to you always, both of you. Lovely to see you both.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining us today. Did you find this conversation insightful? Do you have any questions we should address next time? Send us all your questions, feedback, or topic ideas via Discord, where we'll have a dedicated channel for the podcast. Alternatively, feel free to send us an email or a message via our socials. Links are in the notes. Until next week.